welcome to Food Vendors Reality. Today I'm going to be going over a pager system by Redicus. It's the TD158 wireless guest paging system. They sent me a package to sample, so I'm going to show you the opening of the package as well as some of my thoughts about the pager system itself. As you can see, it is well packaged to protect all of your components. That is soft packing material as opposed to the hard styrofoam. The instruction manual, it does need a little bit of work though. It has minimum details. It really needs either some photos or some icons to match up with some of the terminology that they use within the instructions. It took 2 or 3 readings of the instructions that they provide for me to understand exactly what they were talking about and then to be able to use the pagers in a way that made sense. Once you remove the top packing material and the owner's manual, you come to this layer that has the keypad and then the power for the keypad. One thing I want to point out about the power cord is you can see how it has the elongated plug, which works well if you're using a typical wall outlet, because that way you can actually use both the top and the bottom sockets. But if you're using something like a power strip, like a linear one that only has a series of plugs all side by side, as you can see, if you use this, it's going to block at least 1 if not 2 of those plugs. So if you're going to buy this system or any system that uses this type of plug, you want to make sure that you understand what your power strip sizing is for the different outlets. Otherwise you're going to end up not being able to use all the outlets. When you remove that layer, you come to this layer, which has 2 stacks of 5 each on the coaster style pagers. It has the charging base and then the power cord for that charging base. It's the exact same shape as the other power cord that I showed you a couple of seconds ago, and you would lose a total of 2 plugs plus whatever is beside those 2 outlets. So again, be mindful of how your power strip is laid out. So there's everything you get in the package. And there it is, all taken out of the packing material. You can see they all stack nicely. The pagers do. They all stack nicely. What I would recommend is in that little center disc that you guys get stickers and put your logo there or something to indicate where those particular pagers go. Because when people go to food truck courts, they tend to buy from different food trucks, and they may have 2 of the exact same pager. So you want to make sure that yours are identifiable and they know which truck to go to pick up the food from. And there you can see the 2 power cords laying side by side, and you can see what kind of space they would take up. So here are the features, and this is from their website. They're durable. They're built with high quality material for maximum durability and environmentally friendly. When I picked the keypad up as well as the individual pagers, they are light, but the plastic that they're made out of is very thick and very durable. So I agree with the durability, but they are very light, so it makes them very easy to knock over, and it's certainly something that a guest is going to hand to their child when they're waiting on the food to be prepared. And you know what a kid's going to do. It's round, so it's a little mini frisbee. It's going to be flipped up like a coin because they are relatively small. And I'll show you something for size comparison here in a minute. They work off of AM technology. It adapts the AM modulation, mature technology, and it works off 433 megahertz. That means you can't change the channels. And I'll explain what problems that could present here in a minute. The touch keypad is a white touch keypad transmitter, and it's IP33 waterproof level. What IP33 stands for is the direction of the water splash or spill onto that particular keypad. IP33 is less than a 60-degree angle on the splash. So you can't stand there and pour a cup of water directly over top of it. But if it gets an incidental splash from when you're cleaning, or somebody spills a drink or something, it should continue to function as you would expect. The rechargeable battery has a built-in 3.7 volt, 300 milliamp hour rechargeable lithium battery. And the full charging time, it only needs 4 hours. When I charged my set, they were all indicated they were fully charged in less than 2 hours. So keep that in mind. If it does take a 4 full hours, they may not be fully charged when the light goes off. I left mine plugged in for 2 days, and anytime that I would move any of the pagers, and I mean just barely sliding the stack of pagers 2 inches, they all came dislodged from the charge, and they all started flashing as if they needed to be recharged, and they remained flashing for several minutes. Changeable prompt way. They can buzz, they can vibrate, they can flash, and you can choose between any of those combinations. My suggestion is use them all, because we want that pager to be as annoying as possible so people notice it and then come up and retrieve their food as quickly as possible. 1 key power off. The 0 plus call on the keypad shuts down all the pagers at once, and I was able to use this function. It does exactly what it says. And then the last thing there, the multiple keyboards work with the same pagers. 1 pager can work with several keypad transmitters. That's because they're all on that 433 megahertz. So you can use all the same pagers in different places. This becomes a problem when you are parked right next to a truck that has the exact same brand. Neither one of y'all can switch channels, so you're both setting off each other's pagers. And I'll talk to you in a second on how you can get around that. The indicator light, it flashes when it's charging, but the light, when it is fully charged, stays on constantly, so there's no more flashing. So it's easy for you to know the charging condition. As soon as one of those pagers is dislodged or broken from the power source, it starts to flash. And then when it's put back on the power source, it will, after a few seconds, stop flashing. So it's when it's fully charged, the light's on constant only when it's connected to the power. These are cost effective. There's no digital tube. Now, nowhere in the manual does it explain what a digital tube is, so I'm going to assume it's some type of framework that would hold the pagers in place to keep them from tipping over. These pagers are stackable. They have pins on them that line up with little indentations on the top side of the pager, and then those little pins are on the bottom side. That's how it transmits power. But when you line those up, they hold together pretty decently, but they are very light. Like I said, easy to knock over. But I'm again assuming the digital tube is some type of framework that some of the more expensive pagers would use to help keep them in a nice, neat stack, and also making them easy to move around too. Support, customize. Each pager support customizes your own pager or your brand to publicize your own business. What they're talking about is that little circle in the middle that you can put a sticker that has your logo on it, name your business, whatever you want to put on it. The reminder time can be set. Time from 0 to 200 seconds on F3 station. Press the number, then pick up 1 pager from the charging base in the charging condition. Confirm it within 3 seconds. If it's successful, the pager will be buzzer and flashing. The default setting is 30 seconds. 0 means reminds all the time. And this is a direct copy and paste from their website. So that's why some of the English doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Basically what it's telling you is you can set the duration for the buzzing, flashing, and vibration up to 200 seconds. I'm going to suggest you do that as soon as you buy these. The ones that I got, I tested them all. They run from about 28 to 30 seconds on the default setting. So as soon as you set one off, within 30 seconds, it has shut down. So if you don't get the attention of the guest within those 30 seconds, they don't know you've paged them. So that's why I'm telling you to set it to the full 200. Because then you have an annoying little device that they are going to want to get out of their hands as soon as possible So they're going to almost run up to your trailer to get the food and get that pager out of their hand. Easy to program the number. Now here's how we're going to get around the issue of two trailers side by side using the exact same brand with only the 433 megahertz transmission signal. When you press the F2 key, you can change the number of the pager. And if it's successful, it'll beep and flash for 3 seconds or 3 times and let you know that, hey, you have changed the number. And you can change the numbers from 1 to 999. I'm going to suggest as soon as you buy these and you get it set up on your trailer, change them all to some random number between 1 and 999. I'm not going to suggest a number to start with, because everybody that watches this video then will just pick that number. So you decide what numbers you're going to be using, but I would get into the triple digits, because most people are going to unbox this and start with 1 through 10. And that means that, again, you're going to set off other people's, they're going to set off yours, and you just don't want that confusion. So here is the pager system set up with, that's an iPhone 12, so you can have a size reference. You see the keypad's relatively small. The pagers certainly are small. They're not any wider than that iPhone 12, and certainly nowhere near as tall. They are, again, very light. The iPhone there actually is heavier than the pagers are. The keypad, even though it's a little bit bigger, as you can see, it's also very light, but it is very bright. You can see in the stack of pagers where the numbers are, so you can reprogram it again from 1 to 999. There's where your pager number comes from, so you don't have to handwrite on the pager itself like a lot of people use a magic marker to mark what number their pager is. These actually show you. You can see the green light that indicates that all those are fully charged. As soon as you lift it off of that charging stand, it will start to flash. And then when you replace it, it will most likely flash for several seconds, if not several minutes, before it goes back to solid. Now, the only way you can turn off these if someone walks up to you with it still flashing and buzzing and vibrating is to put it on the stack. As soon as you put it back on the stack, it turns off all the vibration and other signals to let people know that their food is up. Now, this little yellow disclaimer here is on their website, and I believe it's also in the manual. But it says, please use the keypad transmitter on the table, which be made of wood, plastic, glass, or other materials, and avoid the tabletop of metal and marble. The reason being that's a radio transmitter, and when you set it on top of your stainless steel, the stainless steel could cut down on the transmission level. Now, I tested these at 488 feet. They would work. And we had it setting exactly like you see in that picture. It's setting on a wood top. So what you can do is get one of those small cutting boards to set the keypad on. And that's where you would use it as far as pressing the numbers to let people know that, hey, their food is ready. You want to make sure that you follow that instruction, because you don't want to diminish how far this range is. I know a lot of people set these directly on top of stainless, and unless there's internal insulation to protect it, to protect the radio waves as they transmit out, then your trailer, the way it's built, the stainless steel counter that it's sitting on, all of those things diminish how far the radio waves will go. That's why a lot of people buy these. It'll say it'll go 300 feet, and it doesn't, because there's too much interference in between the keypad and where it goes. Now, as you can see, I said I tested at 488 feet through 5 trailers. So the point that where we had this set up, I walked down beyond 5 different trailers. So the radio waves in a straight line had to penetrate all those different trailers and then get to me. And every pager that I tested would hit around 488 to 490. That seemed to be its top limit. So certainly if you're at the 300 range, 300 feet range, should work no problem. So here are my thoughts. The packaging is extremely secure, and it reminds me of a really high quality product. The initial charge for me took less than 2 hours for all the pagers to stop blinking. The keypad is extremely sensitive to touch, and it responds extremely quickly to touch, and I am talking about as light of a touch as possible. There's no buttons to push. I'll show you it again. It looks like there's buttons because there are indentations that run along each of those areas to delineate one number from another, as well as all the different icons that are there. You can't really see it in that picture, but when I very first got it and started using it, it was very, very sensitive, actually above the numbers. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and all the icons in those rows worked exactly when you touched them, no problem. But when I very first turned on the keypad, the 1, 2, 3, and that settings icon all actually worked on the number or the icon, as well as the area directly above it, in between the red number you see there, the 118, and where the actual button is delineated. Now, it stopped doing that after I started using it for just a couple of minutes. And second and third day after we tested it, didn't repeat that behavior again. So just be aware that it's extremely sensitive, especially when you first open it. The pages in the keypad are extremely light, but again, they do seem very sturdy in construction. Now, some of the negatives. Touching or slightly moving the pager stack, it causes some or all of them to start flashing as if they're not charged. Now, I'm not removing them from the stack. I'm just taking the stack and just moving it side to side just a couple of inches very gently. As soon as it's touched, in some cases, it breaks that electric connection and starts that flashing. The icons on the keypad, they're not as self-explanatory as the instruction manual assumes. So it says in words, but it doesn't tell you what the icon is. It would just be super easy to print the exact same icon with those words in the manual, so that way you know exactly what the key is and which one they're referring to. It only took a couple of seconds to figure it out, but it is frustrating to read it and then go back and look at the keyboard and go, which key are they talking about? Some of the instructions are not as clear as they could be, and again, because there's not icons or pictures to associate some of the activities they're talking about. And it did take me several times to reread it, and a little tiny bit of trial and error. It's certainly not a complicated system, and anybody can master it within maybe 10 minutes at most. Having two different plugs can be challenging for a food truck. So you have the plug for the keypad, and you also have the charging plug. And just as a note, outlets are very limited on a food truck. So the tendency is to use power strips on pieces of equipment that don't consume a lot of power. So it would be your POS system, your printer, your pager system. So all of those are probably going to be put on one single outlet. So be mindful of how you're managing your power strip so that it can handle all those different sizes of plugs, and you still have room for everything else that you need. So the bottom line for me is I would certainly buy this system. It's a very low cost introductory system to get into. It has 10 pagers, which is a great starting point for a new food truck, because that gives you some limit on how many orders you're going to take. Because I want you to think about this. If you have 10 pagers and you take 1 minute per order, like I recommend, that means that you have 10 minutes worth of order taking having done. And if you have not sent any food out and retrieved a pager, that's a real good signal for your cashier to let's stop taking orders and get some food out. And then after you get 2 or 3 pagers that have come back, then you can resume the order taking process. That way you're not blowing away the folks that are making all the food. And then that way, again, it gives you that hard limit on how many orders you're going to take, because you only got 10 pagers. But you can order additional pagers. If you're fast enough to where you can have that many orders going out, you can get an additional 10 or 20 or 30 pagers. They sell them in multiples. I will leave links in the description on where you can purchase these from. And again, they're very inexpensive, just a little over $100. And they're certainly a good set for a beginner. And since they're expandable, you could use these for as long as you are operating your food truck. So you guys have an awesome day. Check out all the rest of the videos on the channel, and I will be talking to you very, very soon.